Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Friday, November 10th, 2023. One of my closest friends in the Congress, one of my ideological compadres, Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona, joins us now. Congressman Biggs, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm kind of surprised that you are coming from Arizona. I mean, I know you live in Arizona. You're in a beautiful library there, your own library. But I'm surprised that Congress is not in session as we speak. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday in the East Coast of the United States in Washington, D.C. Isn't the government about to shut down a week from today?
Well, we don't call it a shutdown in government parlance. We would say a spending lapse, Judge. But yeah, yes, we actually come up with against that next week on the 17th. I'm kind of surprised we got home. In fact, I had was making other arrangements to stay through the weekend because I thought we'd probably be working through the weekend. I anticipate we're gonna tee it back up on Monday, but I assume, Judge, that they did this for this weekend because it's Veterans Day, and we all have a lot of veterans in our districts, and we want to pay them honor and tribute. Maybe the best way to pay them honor and tribute is to get the government working right, but we decided to come back to districts anyways.
Well, what will happen next week? I mean, are the Republicans in the House, with now a decidedly more conservative, you correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going by impressions and media outlets, I don't know him personally, decidedly more conservative speaker than the last speaker, insist on things that they know that the Democrats in the House won't accept, and even the Republicans in the Senate won't accept, like no abortions in the military or something like that, which would thrill me no end, but that's probably a non-starter if you're talking about a continuing resolution.
Well, Judge, I'm going to make a prognostication here, and I'm terrible at these. These never work out quite the way I want, but
I know, but they're fascinating when you say them and for the reasons you give for them.
So this is what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to see something a little bit unusual, and it would be kind of a ladder, 2 tiers, phased in CR. And what'll happen is there'll be a time. They don't want to do it in December because they're scared to death. If you have it in December, the Senate will come back with an omni. But I keep telling them they can come back with an omni. It doesn't matter if you continue into January. They can still come back with an omni on December 21st, which is what I project to happen. But what's going to happen next week is you'll pass a CR that has 2 deadlines. The first deadline will be sometime early, mid-January. It will it will only continue that long for the 3 bills that the Senate has passed, plus the Department of Defense bill. Everything else will go until like early February. The theory behind that is we're still trying to break DC of the habit of doing one monolithic spending bill, which they've done over 100 times in the last 25 years, and get them to get back to doing single subject appropriations bills. And so we're going to try to get the Senate to deal with those. And the thing that will happen is there are those of us who've never voted for a continuing resolution. I've never done that. I'm really uncomfortable with doing it this time, unless you give us something meaningful. So I'll give you an example of what I think would be meaningful. There is in the Inflation Reduction Act, which is ridiculously named, but it was by the Biden administration.
Right.
They gave subsidies and tax credits for a mess of Green New Deal projects. And they initially anticipated, the Congressional Budget Office said it'd be about $350 billion, somewhere in that range. Now they're projecting that it'll be over $2 trillion.
Oh.
And so wait
a minute. Is this the same numbers producing a different result from 350 billion to 2 trillion? Can these people add?
Well, their problem, Judge, is the Biden administration last December, when they put that out, They didn't put a cap on any of this.
Ah,
And so they're finding businesses are trying to rush in with these mega projects.
okay.
And this administration would never say no to those projects. And we're trying. I'm saying, how about if you just cap it? If you capped it at the $350 billion or whatever that CBO score was, you would immediately save $1.7 trillion. I mean, that's just off the projection. And my guess is that projection is conservative again, a little bit low. So if you could save $1.7 trillion, that might do it for me to vote for that. But
Okay.
if you're going to just simply come in and just say we're going to do this again, same thing we've always done, I don't know that they're going to get the votes necessarily.
The concept of voting on bills by subject matter, as opposed to one enormous, I think you used the term omnibus bill, really was instrumental, correct me if I'm wrong, in the removal of Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, since the conservatives and libertarians wanted to vote yes on something and no on something, and McCarthy went along with the White House and the Democrats saying it's yes or no on everything in one vote. Do I have that right?
That's it. Yeah, that's broken down fairly simply. That is correct. I would just tell you that there are those of us who believe that you should be making cuts as well.
Right, of course.
You have to make cuts. You have to adjudicate policy. And when you do a CR, you basically continue the spending level and the bad policy.
Right. So
we don't do
you'll
that.
be able to vote up or down on Ukraine, aid to Ukraine, up or down on aid to Israel, up or down on a border wall and more security in Texas. You won't have to vote up or down on all of that in one bill. Is that essentially? This is contrary, I think, to what the Biden administration wants. I think old Joe wants another $100 billion, and he wants to split it the way he wants between the border wall, Israel, and Ukraine.
Yeah, roughly that's speaking. That's right. He wants $105 billion in one package. And by the way, the border stuff, that really isn't so much for border security. It's to facilitate entry. That's when you begin reading the breakout of their summaries. That's
facilitate entry. Well, is it what? More security people, more judges, more courtrooms?
No, more buses, more airplanes, more Uber rides.
I was being sarcastic because I know what they need. I'm going to put a tweet up on the board, up on the screen. I think it's from Congressman or from Secretary Buttigieg. From the time Russia launched its full-scale invasion, I've kept close contact with my Ukrainian counterpart about impacts to global supply chains, particularly port and rail infrastructure. Today, I'm in Kyiv to deliver on a top ask to place an infrastructure advisor here. Good God, is the federal government now going to be in the business at the expense of the taxpayer of rebuilding Ukraine?
Judge, if this administration has its way, the answer is yes. And here, just think of the way that was phrased. You know what I see in that? I see a move towards this globalist structure that they wish to have.
Yes.
Erase the U.S. border, get all of us, take away U.S. riches and our wealth, transfer it to other nations with this bogus communist type of way of equalizing. And when they start equalizing like that, we all move down mediocre, and our lifestyle, the goodness of our lifestyle is impeded because of that, because they will bring us down to mediocrity and below if they can do it through their equity movement.
Does the war party in Congress, which is about 90% of the Republicans and about 90% of the Democrats, want that and expect it? I mean, is Wall Street salivating over this?
Yeah, I mean, this is the military-industrial complex, Judge. I mean, they look. Here's the way to think about this. They want to. We passed out the Israeli supplemental, which, by the way, to my knowledge, Israel never asked for. But we passed that out using IRS money that the Biden administration was used to attack Americans. They don't want to do that. They want to relitigate that and go back and basically hold Ukraine hostage for Israel money, or the Ukraine money, and use that for ostensibly border money. This is the type of thing where you
how
just
much
go.
money did the House vote to give to Israel, which wasn't asked for? Do you know the number and round
Yes,
numbers?
$14.3 billion.
Wow, which Prime Minister Netanyahu has yet to ask for. Is the Senate going to go along with that? No, because you the way the House crafted it, I think it's revenue neutral. They're not going to go out and borrow 14 billion. They're going to take it away from the IRS's new hirings. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And you know what?
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. McConnell has said, we've never done that with supplementals before. We don't want to do that. So with supplementals, we just borrow the money. And this is the idiocy that we have in the United States Congress, the House and Senate, And so I find myself saying, the reason for that some of us are there is to continually push back, because this is crazy.
I can't thank you enough for pushing back. To me, the happiest times are when the Congress is not in session, whether it's because, like today, a holiday weekend, or because of an inability to organize the House. As Mark Twain said, you and I talked about this before we went on air. Nobody's liberty or property is safe when the Congress is in session. Therefore, my liberty and property is safe when it's not. The Constitution authorizes 2 criminal statutes. The Congress has written 5,500. God knows what they can't write anymore when they're not in session. You are a historian, and I have a little treat for you. Chris, our favorite clip involving Ted Koppel, if you have that available.
You make the observation in your book, and you say that you have said it many times when you were president of the United States, that no president is ever going to desert Israel, right?
Correct. I put it more bluntly. I said, as I told congressional leaders during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, no American president will let Israel go down the tube.
All right.
Democrat or Republican, it's not an issue.
That is stated fairly categorically, and yet in your book you make it clear at the same time that Israel really is not of any enormous strategic value to the United States anymore.
That's correct.
So why then would the United States continue to burden itself with huge loans, in some cases outright grants, to the Israelis, jeopardize possibly young American fighting men, when there is no strategic value involved, or little strategic
Because the
value?
United States is concerned by more than strategic values. That's maybe a weakness, but it's the way we are. And there are moral issues involved here. We don't have an alliance with Israel, as you know. They're not an ally of the United States in the technical sense. But we have a bond to Israel that's much stronger. It's a moral commitment. A moral commitment because of what happened during the Holocaust, and a moral commitment because it is a democracy, the only democracy in that area.
What do you think? You may remember that very famous interview, but I know you're an American historian. I thought you'd appreciate that.
Judge, I really do. And I would say that I think there is still a strategic, I would disagree with President Nixon in the sense that I think there is some strategic interest with Israel. Certainly, I agree with him on the U.S. for the moral relationship, but it isn't just that, because we have relationships with others. I'm not what he talked about sounds a lot like the democratic peace theory. I'm not a democratic peace theorist. I don't believe that their theory is actually valid, but I do believe that we have some relationship with Israel, which is a kind of a special bond, and we actually have many agreements with Israel on a bilateral in a bilateral status as opposed to multilateral, and I think that's important too, because I think our entire foreign policy needs to step back from multilateral institutions and just go to bilateral relationships. But I would say that with Israel, when you look at Israel, the strategic implication that we have there now is that they provide ballast and stability now more than they did even in the 70s. Why? Because other Arabic nations view Iran as a legitimate regional bully, hegemon, whatever, however you want to call it. And so that's why the Abraham Accords that Trump was able to put in place between those two, between bilateral nations, let's say Bahrain and Israel, and the Saudis and Israel. When you look at that, that becomes strategic for us because it provides stability in the Middle East. And we still get, because of our lousy energy policy under this president, we still actually have to have some kind of energy imports from there. I think there are ways to mitigate that, but not under this administration.
Is foreign aid constitutional, Congressman Biggs?
No, it's not.
And we do it anyway. We do it into the many, many, many billions.
Yes. Yeah. And the justification that we get, Judge, is that a lot of these nations end up, this is almost fascistic when you think about this. The justification is, well, we're going to provide stability in that region. To what end? Okay, so that's number one. Number two, they would say, and then a lot of them end up buying U.S. material, products, whatever. And I'm like, well, how does that make sense? I mean, and it's kind of a quasi-fascistic way of controlling economy.
We should take taxpayer dollars and give it to the government of another country so that the government can spread it out in their economy and their consumers can use it to buy American products. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's nuts.
That defies basic economics 101 if you're talking about stimulating the American economy. Has the Congress, either because of Israel or because they finally see the light, given up the ghost on Ukraine? Or is there going to be a battle over the $60 billion after the $113 billion he's wasted that President Biden wants in additional spending for Ukraine?
I wish I could tell you that it's done and people get it. They don't. They want to give more. This is going to blow your mind here. So my theory of the case, and I'll tell you why I'm bringing this up, is that you in order to get the border secure, you don't need to pass more policies necessarily. What you need to do is have enforcement of the laws we have currently in place. This administration is lawless. They will not impose that. So my position is, you say, guess what? We're not going to fund anything from the IRA. We'll fund our military, our CBP, and our ICE because those are arguably legitimate constitutional functions of our government. Everything else, no, we're not going to fund HUD anymore. We're not going to fund this stuff until you actually enforce the border. Now, why do I bring that up? Because for me, I would be leveraging reductions in spending to actually get performance. I have colleagues that want to do the exact opposite. They want to leverage spending more money in Ukraine to get border security. So they want to say, well, we want performance metrics on the border. In order to get the performance metrics, Biden wants $60 billion. He wants $5 billion a month. Well, we'll give him a couple of months, and he's got to prove that he's going to start getting performance metrics, meet our performance metrics on the border. Failure to do that means that there'll be no more money for Ukraine. I doubt that would happen. And I think you doubt that would happen. And it's a very different approach. My approach is stop spending federal government money or federal taxpayer money. Their approach is buy performance by spending even more federal money.
Yeah, but with the exception of Secretary Austin, and he's probably saying what his bosses want him to say, it is universally recognized that Ukraine is on its last legs. No amount of cash or military equipment can save them now. Their own commanding general told The Economist magazine last week that the war is at a stalemate, a standstill. President Zelensky erupted over that. The chief of staff of the general was assassinated with a fake birthday present that blew up in his face. President Zelensky says he's going to cancel elections next year. We really want to spend another $60 billion on this loser? I don't think what I'm saying is ideological. I think what I'm saying is rational.
It is rational, and that's the point I've been trying to make all along is You don't have to be ideologically driven here to recognize what was going to happen and what indeed has happened. This notion that all the Western nations are going to get together and they'll help facilitate a fight of attrition between Ukraine and Russia was absurd from the beginning. And the U.S. actually had no policy, no rational strategic interest in being in Ukraine. And you could argue whatever you wanted to. It was not a legitimate argument. And right now, and you look at pictures of different places in Ukraine that have not been touched by the war, but we're the ones funding it. We're funding their government. We're funding their pension. We're funding their farmers, and we have a border that's wide open. That we have terrorists coming in. I mean, the bottom line is, and I read the piece you just alluded to or referenced, and I thought, and the implication was that Zelensky has completely lost touch with reality.
Yes,
and he's going to drive this as long as he can get Western money, which makes me wonder, since we know that there has been thefts and embezzlements and transfers of our goods and money that we've sent over there to other people. That's been people have taken a vig off the top, etc. My question is, why did we think that a kleptocracy like Ukraine was going to be any different just because they were in wartime footing and now we were paying for that bill? And the answer was, it never was to be, and it was always going to continue being one of the money laundering capitals of the world, and it's proven to do so even in time of war. In fact, I would suggest in times of war, nefarious, malevolent people, they view it as another opportunity that they might have missed in peacetime.
I want to go to one more subject, which is Russia, Iran, and China. You alluded to Iran earlier, so this will be cut 5, Chris. This is Admiral Kirby doing, his Baghdad Bob best. I think he's on with my colleagues at Fox News. I'm not sure if I have this one right, but he is asked about, does the president see Russia, Iran, and China as a new axis of evil? Listen to
does the president see the new axis of evil, Russia, Iran, and China?
The president's not slapping bumper stickers on axes of evil. What he's concerned about is making sure that we can protect and defend our national security interests around the world. And that includes in the Indo-Pacific. And I don't want to, Karine will kill me if I stand up here and talk much longer, but I mean, you and I could have an hour-long discussion about the things that this president has done to shore up alliances and partnerships all over the world to look after our national security interests. But we're not slapping bumper stickers on countries. We know that Russia presents an acute threat, certainly on the European continent. We know that China represents a strategic competitor challenge in the Indo-Pacific and around the world. And we certainly are not blind to what Iran's doing, supporting Putin's war in Ukraine and supporting these terrorist groups throughout the Middle East.
That fails to recognize that the only reason there's a war in Ukraine is because the U.S. said to Ukraine, don't sign an agreement with Putin. NATO has your back. We'll make you a NATO member. We'll give you the money you need. Remember Kissinger. It's dangerous to be an enemy of the United States. It's more dangerous to be a friend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm baffled by the statement by Mr. Kirby there. First of all, I have rarely seen a more feckless foreign policy in the United States in history than this one. It is abject. It's one of abject failure. It has not put America first. It has not looked after our security interests. In fact, it is actually fomenting. My own personal opinion is looking at what's going on in Israel, looking at what's going on with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. I believe you're seeing non-state actors that are being funded and by places like Iran. And how does Iran funding them? With $6 billion we just gave Iran 6 weeks ago. So when you start looking at that, you say, we are funding both sides of virtually every war. Russia still receives transfer payments from us through purchases, etc. Then you have Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and they're getting money from Iran that we funded. And this administration wants to give another $300 million to the Palestinian Authority, as if that money is going to be for humanitarian purposes. We're funding both sides of almost every conflict around.
Right.
We have people, we have arms, people under arms all over this world right now. And so the question I ask is, why are we in all these places? I mean,
the administration is fighting back at Iran-supported militias who are attacking American troops in Syria. What are they doing in Syria?
Exactly.
Did I miss something? Did you guys declare war on Syria?
No, there's absolutely. We haven't made a declaration of war since World War II, 75 years. And yet we have personnel going over there under arms, being attacked with weird rules of engagement so they can't even defend themselves. There is no mission statement. There is no objective. And we come back, and our soldiers come back, and they come back mentally and physically damaged, and we have 23 suicides a day on average of veterans who come back from these conflicts. It just becomes absolutely unjustifiable. I can't even begin to understand what they think they're doing. It's just remarkable. But I'm telling you what, I'm looking forward to once again saying, well, we're going to take care of America versus trying to take care of the entire world. I'll tell you what happens if you take care of America and you make us the strongest military that nobody wants to even mess with, so they're not sending China spy balloons across our nation, etc. All of a sudden, the rest of the world stabilizes because the U.S. is strong, and without us going abroad and fighting in every conflict.
I'll tell you what's remarkable is your patience, your willingness to survive in that swamp, surrounded by colleagues who don't give a damn about the Constitution, don't give a damn about Economics 101, don't give a damn about picking fights and wars all over the world. My hat is off to you. Deeply grateful for the time you spend with us, Congressman Biggs. I regard our friendship and intellectual collaboration as a gift for which I am deeply grateful.
Well, thank you. Thanks for what you do.
Of course. We'll do it again soon. All the best. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, we'll just keep fighting the judge. That's all we can do. That's all we can do.
I'd be a little hotter under the skin if I were representing New Jersey. New Jersey would never send me to Congress, but I'd be a little hotter under the skin than you are. That's why one of the reasons I love you. This stuff rolls off your back. All the best, Congressman Biggs. Have a great Veterans Day weekend. Thank you.
You too, Judge. Thank you.
Sure. More as we get it, my dear friends. Ask the judge, AMA, ask me anything about what we've discussed on air at 2:00 Eastern and at 3:30 Eastern, the weekly favorite, the Intelligence Community Roundtable with Larry Johnson and Ray McGovern. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.